Hello everybody, in this video we're going to create a multiple subtraction quiz. So we're going to use a loop to generate several subtraction questions. And then we're going to use a variable to keep track of how many questions have been asked and how many questions they've got correct. So, and then for each question, so each time through the loop, we're going to generate two random numbers and ask the user for the answer of the difference. And then we're going to print the result. So over in Eclipse, I've created a new project called Subtraction Quiz Loop, and we're going to create a new class. And this is going to be called Subtraction Quiz Loop as well. And we'll get a main method. All right. Again, we're reading input from the user, so we need to import scanner. And we can come down to the main method. All right. So the first thing we're going to have is, well, how many questions do we actually want to ask? And we could just put in a number in the while loop, but a much better way is to not use magic numbers as conditions. So what we're going to do here is create a final int, number of questions, and for now we're going to set it equal to 5. So let's just maximize this to give us some space. Number of questions to ask. Now, the next step is we're going to keep track of the user's score. So we need an int to store how many they got correct. So correct count. And for now, because they start with a score of 0, we're going to initialize that to 0. Next is count. So how many questions have we actually asked so far? And for now, it's going to be 0. Now, we're also going to keep track of how long it took them to answer all the questions. So long start time equals system.current time millis. Remember that returns the number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. And we're going to store a string called output, which is, for now, it's going to be empty. We're going to build upon this string as we go. And finally, we'll create a scanner object. So scanner input equals new scanner, and we're reading from system.in. Okay, so now they're all the variables that we need before we can start. So the next thing is the loop. So while count, the number of questions that we've asked so far, is less than number of questions, we're going to loop. So the first step is to generate two random numbers. So, and they're going to be between 0 and 10. So int number 1 equals, we're typecasting to an int because we're using math.random. And then we're multiplying this by 10. And we're going to do the same thing for number 2. So I'll just copy and paste that and change it to the variable name to number 2. All right, now, again, we're going to swap if we need to, so because we don't want to have to deal with negative numbers. So if number 1 is less than number 2, we're going to swap them. Oh, that's not supposed to be a P, it's supposed to be a brace. Int temp equals number 1. Number 1 equals number 2. And then finally, we set number 2 back to temp. All right, so we've swapped the numbers if number 1 is less than number 2. Now we're going to prompt the student to enter an answer. So system.out.print, and I'm going to put this on a new line just to spread things out a bit. So what is, now we're doing some string concatenation here. So number 1 plus a string with a minus sign in it plus number 2, a string with a question mark in it. All right, and we'll get their answer. So int answer equals input.nextInt, and now we're going to work out whether they got it correct. So if number 1 minus number 2 is equal to their answer, so if the answer we calculate is equal to what the user entered, system.out.println, you are correct. And then we're going to increment the correct count because we want to keep track of how many they got right over the duration of the quiz. So correct count plus plus. So that's the increment operator. So we're just adding 1 onto correct count. Else. So if they didn't get it right, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to type system.out.println. Your answer is wrong. New line. Now, we're going to do string concatenation here. Number 1, actually, I'll bring this onto a new line, plus a string with a minus sign in it, plus number 2, plus should be, and now we're going to add on number 1 minus number 2. So we put this in parentheses so we guarantee it gets executed first, and we print out the actual result. Alright, finally that's it for this print line. And what we're going to do here, actually that's it for this whole else block. The next thing we have to do is increase the count. So count plus plus. The reason for this, and this is really, really important, we're looping until count is equal to the number of questions that we want asked. If we never increment count, it means that this loop is going to go on forever. So we have an infinite loop here. Infinite loops, generally a bad idea. So what we're going to do now is print out their score. So output plus equals. All right, so what are we going to add on to equal? So we're concatenating output with something else now. So we're going to start with a new line. Plus number 1 plus minus sign plus number 2 plus equals plus their answer plus. Now I'm going to go on to a new line to spread things out a bit, and parentheses number 1 minus number 2 equals answer. So we have a conditional here. Number 1 minus number 2 equal to answer. That is a Boolean expression that will either be true or false. What we're going to have next is the question mark. Now the question mark is the ternary operator. It's kind of like a shortcut for doing a small if-else block. So we're going to have correct here, colon, wrong. Now, what does this actually mean? So, how this operator works is we start off with a Boolean expression. If this Boolean expression is true, we do whatever is on the left-hand side of the colon. If it's false, we do whatever is on the right-hand side of the colon. So this is a way of concatenating true or false to this string, depending on whether they got the answer correct or incorrect. So that's the ternary operator. It's a shortcut for doing an if-else. So that's it for the while loop. Finally, we're going to work out how long it took them to do this. So we need to get the current time. So long end time equals system.current time in milliseconds. So the duration, so long test time equals end time minus start time. Finally, we're going to print out system.out.println their score. So correct count is plus correct count. And then I'm going to come down onto a new line, and we're actually going to put a new line into our string. Test time is... Now what we're going to do here is giving it to them in milliseconds, probably not so useful. So test time divided by 1000, and then we're going to print out seconds. New line. And then we're going to print out output, which will have the results from each question. And that's complaining. Why is that complaining? Let's have a look. Problems. Oh, three problems. I forgot a semicolon. and test time. Delete this token. I forgot the plus. Compiler errors in Java are really nice. Anyway, that's the corrected version of the code. So let's run this now. Now, to make things a bit shorter, let's just make this 2. So we're only going to loop twice now. This is one of the reasons why putting magic numbers is a bad idea. So it's a much better way to have a final int at the start of the program that we can easily change. So let's run this. Run as Java application. What is 3 minus 0? The answer is 3. You are correct. Awesome. What is 5 minus 4? Now I'm going to put in the wrong answer here just to see what happens. So your answer is wrong. 5 minus 4 should be 1. The correct count is 1. We got one answer correct. And the test time took 10 seconds. So it took me 10 seconds to do that. And then it prints out all of our answers and whether we got them correct or not. So with that, that's it for this video. So we created a program that generated multiple subtraction questions, and we used counter variables to keep track of the number of questions asked, so we knew when the loop should end, and the number of correct answers, and also output, which we appended to each time through the loop. Now, it's really important that we remember to increment the variable inside the loop. If we never incremented count, a program would have looped forever because we had an infinite loop. So keep that in mind. It's really important, and infinite loops happen all the time when we're programming. It's something to look out for. So that's it for this video. Thanks.